You are going to leave the physical world tonight. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Literally. And you have been doing this every night of your life without being taught what it means. When you lie down and close your eyes, the body does not simply power down. It is set aside. What you call sleep is not rest. It is relocation. Consciousness disengages from the sensory interface of the physical identity and shifts into a non-physical domain that exists beneath, behind, and within this reality. You were never meant to disappear at night. You were meant to travel. The reason this sounds strange is because you were taught to identify yourself as a body that occasionally dreams, instead of consciousness that occasionally inhabits a body. The moment the senses withdraw, identity loosens. Muscles soften. The grip on form releases. And awareness begins to decouple from the structure it animates during the day. This is not a failure of control. This is the design. Every night, the physical identity goes quiet so something more fundamental can move. You are not entering nothingness. You are entering a field. A layer of reality that does not operate through matter, time, or linear cause and effect. A domain where experience is shaped by frequency rather than force. Where emotion becomes environment. Where recognition determines clarity. This is why dreams do not obey physical rules. It is not because they are meaningless. It is because you are no longer in the physical rule set. The body remains behind like a docked vessel. Breath continues. The heart keeps rhythm. But the part of you that perceives, that feels, that knows itself as, I am, is no longer anchored to muscle or bone. This is why paralysis appears. Not to trap you, but to prevent confusion between realms. The system knows the difference, even if you were never taught to. You have been conditioned to think that consciousness is produced by the brain. But every night, you experience the opposite. The brain becomes quieter in some areas and louder in others, not to create consciousness, but to get out of its way. Logic dims. Control dissolves. And awareness becomes fluid. This is why the night world feels more real than imagination and less solid than waking life. You are between densities. This place is not somewhere you go later, after death. It is somewhere you go now, regularly, rhythmically, precisely. Death is not the first exit. Sleep is the rehearsal. And the fact that you return every morning has made you underestimate the significance of leaving. What you experience there depends entirely on how you arrive. Not on technique. Not on effort. But on inner state. The field you enter responds to who you are being, not what you are trying to do. This is the law. This is why some nights feel fragmented and heavy, while others feel expansive and clear. You are not being tested. You are being reflected. Tonight, you will leave again. The only difference now is that part of you remembers. If you are aligned with this frequency, subscribe and remain within it. When the body falls asleep, something precise and deliberate happens. Systems that are essential for survival continue effortlessly, while everything related to movement, defense, and outward control is powered down. Muscles release their tension. Sensory input dims. The nervous system shifts from outward vigilance to inward coherence. This is not collapse. It is withdrawal. The body is not failing you. It is stepping aside. What most people misunderstand is the direction of the shift. Sleep is not a descent into unconsciousness. It is a transfer of emphasis. Awareness is no longer routed through the eyes, ears, and skin. It is no longer required to manage posture, balance, or reaction. Freed from the task of operating matter, consciousness becomes amplified inwardly. This is why inner experience intensifies as the body becomes still. The paralysis that follows is often misunderstood as something alarming or unnatural. In truth, it is one of the most intelligent safety systems you possess. When the body disconnects from voluntary movement, it prevents inner experience from being translated into physical action. This keeps the domains distinct. You are not meant to run with the body while traveling elsewhere with awareness. Separation preserves coherence. At the same time, sensory withdrawal creates a vacuum. External stimuli no longer dominate attention. The constant stream of light, sound, and tactile information recedes. And into that silence, something else becomes audible. Inner imagery sharpens. Emotional tone becomes vivid. Perception reorganizes around internal signals rather than external cues. This is why experience does not fade when the body sleeps. It reorganizes. Control is the first thing to go. The part of the mind that monitors, evaluates, and corrects behavior relaxes its grip. This is not loss. It is permission. Consciousness does not need to manage reality in this state. It needs to move through it. Effort would only create friction. Allowing creates flow. You may notice that in this state, you cannot will your body to move, yet experience continues seamlessly. You can feel, see, react, and exist without physical agency. This is not a malfunction. It is a demonstration. Awareness does not depend on muscle. Identity does not require motion. Presence does not need control. This is where many people become confused, because they have been taught to equate consciousness with action. If you cannot move, you must be passive. If you cannot intervene, you must be absent. But sleep reveals the opposite. When the body releases control, consciousness becomes more mobile, not less. This is the preparation phase. The transition state. The bridge. Before awareness can function non-locally, it must detach from the habit of managing form. Before it can move freely, it must stop gripping the body as proof of existence. The shutdown is not an ending. It is a clearing of the channel. Every night, this happens automatically. Not because you force it, but because the system knows exactly when to let go. The body rests so awareness can travel. The senses quiet so perception can widen. Control dissolves so experience can reorganize itself around something deeper than effort. This is not unconsciousness. This is redistribution. And once you understand that, the night no longer feels like a void. It feels like a threshold. This journey is not a side effect of biology. It is not an accident of evolution or a convenient shutdown cycle. It is an intelligent design built into consciousness itself. Sleep exists because identity accumulates tension during waking life, and tension distorts perception. Without a nightly recalibration, awareness would fragment under the weight of its own resistance. During the day, you compress yourself into form. You hold roles, memories, expectations, unfinished emotions. You navigate contrast, make decisions, suppress impulses, perform coherence even when you feel none. All of this creates energetic residue. Not as punishment, but as information. And information must be processed, or it becomes noise. Sleep is the system that restores signal. When you disengage from the physical identity at night, the pressure of being someone dissolves. You are no longer required to maintain posture, narrative, or control. This allows emotional charge to surface without resistance. Feelings that were postponed during the day rise into awareness, not to overwhelm you, but to be integrated. This is why emotion intensifies in dreams. Not because it is exaggerated, but because it is no longer suppressed. Calibration happens through allowing. The system does not analyze you. It does not judge your choices. It simply restores coherence by letting experience complete itself. Expansion emotions loosen constriction. Contraction emotions reveal misalignment. Both are necessary. Both are guidance. The night exists so you do not have to carry unfinished signals into the next day. Identity tension is released because identity itself is softened. You are not required to be consistent while asleep. You are not defending an image. You are not managing outcomes. This creates space for recalibration at a level that effort cannot reach. Forcing change during the day often reinforces resistance. Allowing change at night dissolves it. This is why sleep deprivation destabilizes perception so quickly. Without access to this recalibration field, emotion accumulates without integration. Memory fragments without consolidation. Identity becomes rigid, reactive, and distorted. The system was never meant to operate continuously in outward mode. Consciousness requires rhythm, expansion and return, engagement and release. The journey is necessary because creation only happens in the present moment, and the present moment must be cleared of residue to remain accessible. Sleep resets your relationship to now. It dissolves attachment to yesterday's identity so tomorrow's timeline can remain fluid. Without it, you would calcify into repetition. This is also why contrast sharpens desire and refines alignment. The day generates contrast. The night integrates it. One without the other produces imbalance. Together, they create evolution. Nothing about this is random. The cycles are precise because consciousness is precise. You are not escaping life when you sleep. You are maintaining the conditions that make conscious life possible. The night does what effort cannot. It recalibrates you without asking permission from the ego. Every time you surrender to sleep, you allow the system to restore harmony between identity and awareness. You allow misalignment to soften. You allow coherence to re-emerge. Not by trying. Not by fixing. But by releasing. This is why the journey exists. Not as a mystery to solve, but as a function to trust. Now the focus shifts. Not to the fact that you leave, but to where awareness stabilizes once it is no longer anchored to the physical frame. When the senses withdraw and identity loosens, consciousness does not drift aimlessly. It enters a structured inner environment. Not a place made of objects, but a field composed of frequency, information, and potential. This is the quantum inner field you enter every night. This field does not behave like physical space. There are no fixed coordinates, no distances measured in meters, no movement powered by force. It is organized by resonance. What you experience there is determined by coherence between your inner state and the informational layers available to you. You do not travel through it by effort. You attune to it by being. The mistake most people make is imagining this realm as a dreamscape generated by the mind. But the mind is not the architect here. It is a receiver. The field exists independently of your personal narrative. It responds to frequency, not intention. Trying to impose will collapse clarity. Allowing presence stabilizes perception. This is why the same night can produce vastly different experiences for the same person. The field itself does not change. Your point of access does. Emotional tone acts like a tuning mechanism. Calm coherence opens stable layers. Agitation produces distortion. Fear compresses perception. Trust expands it. This is not punishment or reward. It is physics operating at a subtler scale. In the quantum inner field, information is primary. Images, symbols, environments, and encounters are expressions of informational patterns translating themselves into experience. You do not see with eyes. You perceive directly. Knowing and seeing collapse into the same function. This is why experiences feel immediate and unquestionable. There is no gap between perception and meaning. Effort has no leverage here because effort belongs to the physical domain. It relies on friction, resistance, and linear causation. The inner field responds to coherence, not force. The more you try to move it, the more opaque it becomes. The more you allow yourself to rest into presence, the more structured it appears. This is also why emotional guidance becomes precise in this state. Expansion feels expansive because it is alignment. Contraction feels heavy because it is misalignment. These sensations are not psychological commentary. They are navigational data. The field communicates through feeling because feeling is frequency translated into experience. You are not exploring imagination. You are interfacing with a layer of reality that precedes form. A layer where probability exists before it becomes event. Where identity is fluid and timelines remain selectable. This is why insights emerge fully formed. This is why solutions appear without reasoning. The field presents integrated information, not steps. Most people pass through this realm unconsciously, brushing against fragments and distortions without stabilizing awareness. But the field itself is precise, responsive, and ordered. It has always been there. It does not require belief. It requires coherence. Every night, when the physical world recedes, this field becomes accessible. Not because you earned it, but because it is part of the architecture of consciousness. You do not enter it by trying harder. You enter it by letting go of everything that does not belong there. And once you understand that, the question is no longer whether the field is real. The question becomes how clearly you are willing to meet it. Emotion is not a reaction to experience. It is the mechanism through which experience is selected. In the quantum inner field, emotion is not something you feel after perception. It is the organizing principle that determines what becomes perceptible in the first place. This is why emotion functions as navigation rather than commentary. It is not telling you what happened. It is instructing the field on what to present next. Every feeling carries a frequency. Not metaphorically, but functionally. Expansion states such as ease, curiosity, openness, and calm signal coherence between awareness and the field. In these states, perception stabilizes. Experience becomes clearer, more fluid, more ordered. Contraction states such as fear, urgency, resistance, and control signal misalignment. In these states, perception fragments. Experience becomes distorted, repetitive, or heavy. This is not a moral system. There are no good emotions and bad emotions. There is only signal clarity and signal noise. Expansion does not mean pleasure. It means allowance. Contraction does not mean failure. It means information requesting integration. In the inner field, you do not move forward by choosing images or environments. You move by shifting state. A subtle change in emotional tone can reorganize the entire experience instantly. One moment you are stuck in repetition. The next, everything opens. Not because something external changed, but because coherence was restored internally. This is why trying to control the experience collapses it. Control is a contraction state. It introduces urgency, expectation, and effort. These frequencies compress perception and limit access. Allowing does the opposite. Allowing removes resistance, which restores flow. This is the law. Forcing repels. Calm receptivity attracts. Emotion also explains why the same symbolic content can feel either illuminating or overwhelming depending on the night. The field presents information proportionate to your capacity to receive it without distortion. Expansion allows complexity. Contraction simplifies. This is not limitation. It is protection. You were taught to override emotion during waking life. To push through it. To suppress it. To treat it as noise. But in the inner field, emotion is the interface. Ignoring it removes your map. Resisting it scrambles your signal. Listening to it restores orientation. This is why guidance is immediate there. You do not need explanation. You feel alignment or misalignment instantly. There is no debate. No rationalization. Just resonance or dissonance. This is how consciousness navigates without coordinates. Once you understand this, you stop trying to chase specific experiences. You stop asking for visions, answers, or control. You focus instead on state. On coherence. On allowing emotion to settle into clarity rather than forcing it into silence. And the field responds immediately. If this recognition has clarified something you already felt but could not name, like the video now is a confirmation that this recognition has landed. Emotion is not in the way. Emotion is the way. It is the only compass that works in a realm where force has no leverage and identity is fluid. And every night, whether you notice or not, you are navigating by it. Time does not flow in the quantum inner field. It presents itself all at once. What you experience as past, present, and future during waking life is a sequencing mechanism used by the physical mind to maintain continuity. When that mechanism relaxes, time loses its direction. It does not stop. It reorganizes. In this state, awareness is no longer moving along a line. It is positioned within a field where multiple moments coexist as informational patterns. You are not traveling forward or backward. You are tuning into resonance. Whatever aligns with your current frequency becomes accessible, regardless of where it would sit on a timeline when measured physically. This is why dreams can collapse decades into seconds. Why you can encounter memories that feel current and futures that feel familiar. The field does not label them. It does not distinguish between what has happened and what could happen. It only responds to coherence. If your inner state resonates with a particular pattern, that pattern appears as experience. This does not mean the future is fixed. It means potential exists simultaneously. Timelines are not created later. They are selected now. The quantum inner field holds countless variations of experience, all present as information. Your emotional and identity state determines which of those variations you can perceive and stabilize. Symbolic knowing emerges because linear explanation is unnecessary. In a timeless environment, meaning does not need to be unpacked step by step. It arrives whole. Images function as compressed data. A single symbol can contain layers of understanding that would take hours to articulate verbally. This is not abstraction. It is efficiency. You may wake with the sense that you learned something without being able to explain how. That is because explanation belongs to time. Knowing does not. In the field, recognition happens instantly. The moment awareness resonates, the information is already complete. This is also why precognitive experiences feel so unsettling to the waking mind. They disrupt the assumption that cause must precede effect. But in a simultaneous system, effect and cause are simply different angles of the same pattern. When you access a future possibility in the field, you are not predicting. You are sampling. Whether that sample becomes your lived experience depends on alignment. The field does not impose outcomes. It offers options. Selection happens through identity and frequency, not effort. You return to waking life carrying resonance. If it remains coherent, the timeline stabilizes. If it collapses, the information dissolves back into possibility. This is why anxiety distorts time perception. Fear compresses awareness into imagined futures without coherence. Calm presence opens access without attachment. Again, not morality. Physics. Understanding this changes how you relate to uncertainty. You stop trying to control what comes next. You focus instead on stabilizing now. Because now is where selection happens. Now is where alignment determines which version of experience remains available. If this understanding has clarified your relationship with time and possibility, comment with the words, "I am ready," to anchor this timeline. Time behaves differently there because you are not meant to manage it. You are meant to recognize that it was never as linear as you were taught. Now the focus moves inward. Not to where consciousness goes, but to what remains when the familiar sense of self falls away. The transition into the night is not only a movement through states. It is a shedding of identity. What travels is not your personality. What moves is awareness itself. The personality is a functional construct. It is assembled from memory, habit, language, social feedback, and survival patterns. It exists to navigate the physical world. It makes plans, tells stories, defends positions, and maintains continuity across time. But it is not fundamental. It is an interface. And every night, that interface powers down. This is why dreams rarely preserve your waking persona intact. You may have different priorities, different reactions, different assumptions. You may act without hesitation where you would normally doubt. You may accept impossibilities without question. This is not regression. It is release. The structures that maintain ego coherence during the day are no longer required, so they dissolve. Logic disengages because logic is a tool for managing linear reality. It compares, evaluates, predicts, and corrects. In a nonlinear field, those functions create friction rather than clarity. The mind steps aside not because it is incapable, but because it is unnecessary. Awareness does not need to reason its way through experience when meaning is directly perceived. Without narrative constraints, identity becomes fluid. You are no longer bound to a storyline about who you are or what should happen next. There is no need to justify actions or maintain consistency. Experience unfolds without commentary. This is why the night self often feels more authentic than the waking self. It is not performing coherence. It is being coherence. This does not mean you disappear. It means what remains is simpler and more essential. Awareness continues without name, role, or history. It recognizes itself through presence rather than description. This is why you can exist in unfamiliar forms, environments, or situations without confusion. The sense of I am does not depend on shape. Ego dissolves because ego is a boundary mechanism. It defines where you end and the world begins. In the inner field, those boundaries are porous. Separation softens. Identity expands. This is why encounters can feel intimate, symbolic, or immediate. There is less distance between observer and observed. Many people fear this dissolution because they equate identity with safety. But the night reveals something different. Awareness does not vanish when personality relaxes. It stabilizes. It becomes more responsive, not less. More capable of direct knowing. More adaptable. More present. This is also why attempts to carry waking identity fully into the inner field often fail. The personality wants control, recognition, and continuity. The field responds to coherence, not assertion. Letting go of who you think you are is not a loss. It is the price of clarity. Every morning, the personality reforms. Memory reassembles. Roles return. But something subtle remains. A residue of knowing. A sense that you are more than the story you tell yourself during the day. That sense is accurate. You do not travel as a personality because personality is not what you are. It is what you use. And every night, when it steps aside, awareness remembers itself without labels. Lucidity does not arrive through effort. It arrives through recognition. The moment awareness realizes what it is experiencing, the state stabilizes on its own. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be forced. The shift happens because consciousness remembers itself in the middle of experience. Most people imagine lucidity as something you do. A technique. A skill. A form of control imposed on the dream. But control belongs to the waking identity. It relies on intention, tension, and direction. Lucidity belongs to awareness itself. It emerges the instant confusion drops away. Recognition is not analysis. It is not asking questions or running checks. It is a quiet internal alignment where awareness notices its own position. The realization is simple and immediate. Something clicks. The environment does not change. The quality of presence does. And that change reorganizes everything. Before recognition, experience unfolds automatically. Images appear. Events happen. Awareness follows without questioning. After recognition, awareness becomes stable within the experience. It no longer drifts. It no longer reacts blindly. It observes from within, without stepping outside. This is lucidity. What stabilizes the state is not willpower. It is clarity. The moment awareness stops trying to make something happen, coherence increases. Effort introduces urgency. Urgency destabilizes perception. Recognition removes urgency. It restores stillness. And stillness allows the field to organize itself around awareness. This is why trying to stay lucid often collapses lucidity. The attempt introduces fear of loss. Fear contracts. Contraction distorts. The field responds instantly. The experience fragments or fades. Not as punishment, but as feedback. The system is precise. Recognition works because it aligns awareness with what is already happening. It does not impose a new state. It acknowledges the current one. That acknowledgement is enough. This is the same principle that operates everywhere. Reality mirrors inner state, not words. Recognition changes state. State changes experience. Once recognition occurs, control becomes unnecessary. You do not need to direct the environment. You only need to remain present. The field responds to presence automatically. Movement, clarity, and continuity emerge without effort. This is why experienced practitioners emphasize receptivity over manipulation. Lucidity also reveals something fundamental about identity. The moment you recognize the state, you realize that awareness was present all along. Nothing new appeared. Nothing awakened. You simply stopped misidentifying with the flow of imagery. You recognized yourself as the one perceiving it. This is the deeper function of lucidity. It is not about navigating dreams. It is about discovering that awareness does not disappear when form changes. That recognition carries beyond the night. It loosens attachment to the waking identity. It softens fear of the unknown. It changes how you relate to control. Recognition is instantaneous because truth does not unfold gradually. It is either seen or it is not. Effort belongs to becoming. Recognition belongs to being. And being is always now. When lucidity arrives, it does so quietly. Without drama. Without strain. Awareness simply remembers itself. And in that remembering, the entire experience reorganizes around clarity. Control feels powerful in the physical world because matter responds to force. You push, you pull, you apply pressure, and something moves. That logic does not transfer into the inner field. There, the same impulse produces the opposite effect. Control does not create clarity. It collapses it. The moment awareness tries to dominate the experience, tension appears. That tension is not subtle. It is structural. It introduces urgency, expectation, and resistance into a domain that only responds to coherence. The field does not oppose control. It withdraws from it. Perception destabilizes. Imagery fragments. Continuity dissolves. Not as punishment, but as immediate feedback. Egoic manipulation is rooted in fear of uncertainty. It wants to secure outcomes, extract meaning, or assert identity. But the inner field does not operate through outcomes. It operates through alignment. When you try to command it, you are signaling mistrust of the process. That signal creates contraction. Contraction narrows access. Allowing works because it removes interference. Receptive presence does not mean passivity. It means responsiveness without agenda. Awareness remains alert but ungrasping. It observes without trying to steer. In that state, the field organizes itself naturally. Experience deepens. Movement becomes fluid. Information unfolds without distortion. This is why control often masquerades as curiosity. The ego asks questions not to listen, but to direct. It demands answers, visions, confirmations. The field responds by becoming opaque. Not because the request is wrong, but because the posture is misaligned. Asking from tension blocks reception. Receptive presence is different. It does not demand revelation. It creates space for it. The difference is subtle but decisive. One tries to extract. The other allows emergence. One tightens. The other opens. The field mirrors this instantly. Many people misinterpret the instability that follows control as personal failure. They think they did something wrong. But the system is not judging behavior. It is reflecting state. Control destabilizes because it introduces separation. It reinforces the illusion of a controller and something being controlled. In the inner field, that division creates noise. When you release control, separation softens. Awareness and experience begin to move together. There is no one directing and nothing being directed. There is only participation. This is why the most coherent experiences feel effortless. Not because nothing is happening, but because nothing is resisting. This principle extends beyond the night. Forcing repels. Calm receptivity attracts. Control creates friction. Allowing creates flow. These are not spiritual ideals. They are functional laws of how consciousness interfaces with reality at every level. The paradox is that letting go of control does not make you less present. It makes you more precise. You respond instead of impose. You recognize instead of demand. And in that recognition, the field opens. Control collapses the field because the field cannot be commanded. It can only be met. And the moment you stop trying to bend it to your will, it reveals that it was never separate from you to begin with. Now the journey turns functional. Everything described so far has prepared the ground for what actually happens while you sleep. The inner field is not only a place of perception. It is a space of selection. Each night, consciousness does not merely wander. It recalibrates the trajectory of lived experience. Creation does not happen by pushing reality into a new shape. It happens by aligning with what already exists as potential. In the quantum inner field, countless timelines coexist. Not as fantasies, but as structured possibilities. Each one represents a different continuation of identity, emotion, and perception. Sleep is when awareness disengages from the momentum of the current line long enough to reassess alignment. During the day, identity becomes reinforced through repetition. You react in familiar ways. You feel predictable emotions. You make choices from habit. This creates inertia. Without interruption, that inertia would harden into inevitability. Nightly disengagement breaks the loop. It loosens the grip of yesterday on tomorrow. Timeline calibration does not require visualization or intention. It happens through state. The version of reality you continue into is selected by the frequency you stabilize while the physical identity is offline. Emotion, self-concept, and expectation combine into a signal. That signal determines which timelines remain accessible and which dissolve. This is why forcing change during waking life often feels exhausting. Effort is applied from within the current timeline. Sleep allows selection from outside it. When identity relaxes, new continuations become viable. Old ones lose coherence. Nothing dramatic needs to happen. The shift is subtle, but decisive. Creation is often misunderstood as making something appear. In truth, it is the narrowing of possibility into experience. The field already contains the outcome. What changes is which outcome remains compatible with who you are being. Nightly calibration ensures that misaligned timelines gradually fall away without resistance. This process also explains why emotional states matter more than thoughts. Thoughts are surface-level narratives. Emotion is frequency. Frequency is compatibility. You do not select a timeline by wishing. You select it by resonating. And resonance is not something you do. It is something you are. During sleep, the absence of physical identity allows resonance to become clear. There is no performance. No justification. No defense. The signal is honest. That honesty is what makes recalibration possible. The system responds to what is real, not what is claimed. This is also why change often appears delayed. The selection may occur at night, but the physical reflection unfolds gradually. The new timeline must synchronize across perception, behavior, and environment. But once selection has occurred, the direction is set. You are no longer pushing uphill. You are flowing into alignment. Understanding this removes urgency. You stop trying to force outcomes. You focus instead on coherence. On emotional clarity. On identity alignment. Night after night, the system adjusts. Not dramatically. Reliably. Every time you sleep, you are given another opportunity to release a version of yourself that no longer fits and stabilize one that does. Not through effort. Through allowing. This is not manifestation. It is calibration. And it is already happening, whether you are aware of it or not. During REM sleep, emotion is not replayed for entertainment. It is metabolized. What you carry through the day as unfinished feeling becomes raw material at night. The system does not analyze these emotions. It completes them. This is why REM sleep is intense, vivid, and sometimes uncomfortable. Integration requires exposure, not avoidance. Every emotional experience creates a signal. When that signal is fully felt and resolved, it dissipates naturally. When it is interrupted, suppressed, or resisted, it remains open. An unfinished loop. Trauma is not defined by the event itself, but by the emotional signal that never reached completion. The body moved on. Consciousness did not. REM sleep provides the environment where those loops can close. With the physical identity offline, defenses soften. There is no need to appear functional or composed. Emotion can surface without being managed. In this state, the system replays not to re-traumatize, but to allow resolution. Memory alchemy happens here. Emotional charge that was once fused to specific events becomes disentangled. The experience is revisited without the original physical threat. This allows the signal to complete. Once complete, memory remains without charge. The past no longer hijacks the present. This is why people who are deprived of REM sleep struggle with emotional regulation. Without access to this integrative state, signals accumulate. The nervous system remains hyperactive. Small triggers provoke disproportionate responses. It is not weakness. It is unfinished processing. The inner field facilitates this alchemy by removing linear narrative. Emotion is not processed through story. It is processed through sensation, imagery, and symbolic movement. These forms bypass resistance. They allow the system to do what explanation cannot. You may wake from a night of heavy dreams feeling lighter without knowing why. Or you may feel unsettled before clarity emerges days later. Integration does not always announce itself. It works beneath conscious awareness. But its effects are measurable. Emotional reactivity decreases. Patterns loosen. Perspective widens. This process also explains recurring emotional themes in dreams. They are not failures to move on. They are invitations to completion. The system will continue presenting unfinished signals until they are integrated. Not to punish, but to restore coherence. Importantly, integration does not require reliving pain with the same intensity. The system is intelligent. It titrates exposure. It reveals only what can be processed without collapse. This is why emotional material often appears symbolically rather than literally. Symbols carry charge without overwhelming the system. Once emotional charge is integrated, it no longer needs to express itself through repetition. Behavior changes organically. Reactions soften. Choices expand. Not because you forced transformation, but because resistance dissolved. REM sleep is not random imagery. It is emotional housekeeping. A nightly restoration of balance between experience and awareness. When allowed to function, it keeps the system fluid. When interrupted, rigidity sets in. Understanding this reframes emotional difficulty. Nothing is wrong with you. Something is unfinished. And every night, the system works quietly to bring you back into coherence, one completed signal at a time. Recurring dreams are not accidents and they are not mistakes. They are stable informational patterns that have not yet reached coherence. When a dream repeats, it is not because the mind is stuck. It is because something precise is asking to be recognized in a way it has not been before. The inner field does not repeat itself without reason. Repetition only occurs when a signal remains unresolved. Once coherence is achieved, the pattern dissolves naturally. This is why recurring dreams often carry the same emotional tone even when the details shift. The imagery may change, but the feeling remains consistent. That feeling is the core of the invitation. These dreams persist because awareness has not yet met the information fully. Not understood intellectually, but recognized somatically and emotionally. Recognition is not interpretation. It is alignment. The moment awareness meets the signal without resistance, the system no longer needs to repeat it. Many people try to decode recurring dreams symbol by symbol, searching for hidden meaning. This often keeps the loop active. Analysis belongs to the waking mind. The inner field responds to presence. What dissolves repetition is not explanation, but acknowledgement. Feeling what is present without trying to change it. A recurring dream is a request for coherence, not a warning or prediction. It is the system saying, this frequency is still active. This information has not been integrated. Until it is, it remains relevant. Once it is, it becomes unnecessary. This is why recurring dreams often fade suddenly after a subtle shift in waking life. No dramatic event occurs. No conscious decision is made. Something inside aligns. The signal completes. The pattern disappears. The system moves on. Avoidance strengthens repetition. Fear of the dream's content keeps the signal charged. Resistance maintains separation. The inner field responds by representing the material in different forms, hoping for recognition. The system is persistent because it is efficient. Acknowledgement does not mean indulgence. It does not mean acting out the dream or obsessing over it. It means allowing the emotional and informational content to be felt without judgment. Without rushing to resolve it. Without forcing meaning. Once awareness is present without agenda, coherence emerges naturally. The pattern no longer needs to announce itself. The dream stops repeating because it has done its job. Recurring dreams are not traps. They are invitations to meet something you are ready to integrate. Readiness is not measured by comfort. It is measured by capacity to remain present. When you stop trying to escape the pattern and allow yourself to recognize it, repetition loses its function. The signal dissolves. The system recalibrates. And the inner field opens new territory, because it no longer needs to circle the same point. Nothing repeats forever unless it is ignored. And nothing disappears until it is met. You are not visiting somewhere else when you sleep. The sense of departure is created by contrast, not by distance. What changes at night is not location, but level of access. The separation you feel between waking life and the inner field is functional, not absolute. They are not two worlds. They are two expressions of the same reality, experienced through different filters. During the day, perception is routed through the body. Space appears external. Objects appear separate. Identity feels localized. At night, those filters relax. Awareness is no longer confined to a single vantage point. The boundaries that define here and there soften. This does not mean you leave reality. It means you experience it without compression. The inner field is not above the physical world or outside it. It is beneath it. It is the informational layer from which physical form emerges. What you encounter there is not fantasy. It is reality prior to crystallization. Waking life is the slow, dense expression of patterns that already exist as information. Sleep gives you access to those patterns before they harden into form. This is why symbols feel more real than objects in that state. Symbols are closer to source. They carry meaning without mass. They move without friction. The physical world is not separate from this. It is the final frame in a sequence of condensation. When you sleep, awareness simply shifts upstream. Subject and object collapse because separation is a property of perception, not of reality itself. The sense of being a witness observing something else is a byproduct of bodily orientation. When that orientation dissolves, experience becomes participatory. You are not watching events. You are inside them. Not as a character, but as presence. This does not erase individuality. It recontextualizes it. Identity becomes fluid rather than fixed. You recognize that the I you defend during the day is a useful function, not a boundary of existence. Awareness does not stop where the body ends. It never did. Understanding this changes how you interpret both states. Waking life is no longer seen as the only real domain. Sleep is no longer dismissed as illusion. They become complementary perspectives on the same field. One shows you structure. The other shows you source. This also explains why insights gained at night often feel truer than conclusions reached through effort. They are not filtered through identity maintenance. They arise from a level where coherence precedes opinion. When you return to the body, language struggles to carry them, but their impact remains. The idea that you go somewhere else is a translation error. Consciousness does not travel away from reality. It withdraws from constraints. The field you enter is always present. It is simply masked by sensory dominance during the day. When separation collapses, fear diminishes. There is nothing to fall into and nowhere to get lost. You are not a visitor. You are a participant moving between densities of the same continuum. The night does not take you away. It brings you closer to what was always here. Waking life is not separate from what happens at night. It is the reflection of it. What you experience during the day is shaped less by conscious intention than by the coherence you carry out of sleep. The world does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you are aligned with. Each morning, you return with a certain internal arrangement. A baseline emotional tone. A level of clarity or contraction. A degree of openness or resistance. This internal state does not stay inside. It expresses itself as circumstance. Not symbolically, but structurally. Reality mirrors inner state, not words. When nocturnal coherence is high, waking life feels fluid. Problems resolve with less friction. Opportunities appear without strain. Decisions feel simpler. This is not luck. It is resonance. When awareness is integrated, perception widens. You notice paths that were always there but previously invisible. When coherence is low, waking life feels heavy. Repetition intensifies. Obstacles multiply. Effort increases while results diminish. This is not punishment. It is feedback. Difficulty is information signaling misalignment. The system is not against you. It is informing you. Many people attempt to fix external conditions without addressing internal state. They push harder. They plan more. They control tighter. This amplifies resistance because it treats the reflection as the cause. Alignment always happens internally first. External change follows naturally or not at all. This does not mean you should ignore action. It means action is most effective when it emerges from coherence rather than tension. When inner alignment is restored, action becomes obvious. Effort decreases. Timing improves. The same steps produce different outcomes because they are taken from a different state. Waking challenges often point directly to what is unresolved at night. Emotional reactivity, recurring conflicts, and chronic dissatisfaction usually indicate unfinished integration. The system brings these patterns into visibility so they can be met consciously. Avoidance prolongs them. Recognition softens them. This is why small internal shifts can produce disproportionate external change. When alignment adjusts, the entire field reorganizes. Circumstances rearrange without force. Relationships recalibrate. Choices present themselves differently. You did not change the world. You changed how you are positioned within it. The mirror is precise. It does not exaggerate or distort without reason. What you meet during the day is the most relevant expression of your current state. Interpreting it as personal failure or injustice adds noise. Reading it as feedback restores clarity. When you begin to see waking life as reflection, urgency dissolves. You stop trying to outrun symptoms. You listen. You adjust internally. You allow recalibration to complete. The outer world responds automatically because it has no choice. Nothing you encounter is random. And nothing needs to be forced. Alignment is always internal first. The rest follows as consequence, not reward. You will return there tonight. This is not a possibility or a practice reserved for a few. It is inevitable. When the day releases its grip and the body becomes still, consciousness will disengage again, just as it always has. The journey does not wait for belief. It does not require preparation. It happens because it is built into what you are. The only variable is awareness. Tonight will arrive like every other night. The familiar sequence will unfold. The senses will dim. Thought will loosen. Control will soften. And awareness will begin to slip beneath the surface of form. The difference now is not in what will happen, but in what you will recognize while it happens. You do not need to try to remember. You do not need to chase lucidity or demand experience. Conscious participation begins with something simpler. Recognition. The quiet understanding that this is not an ending to the day, but a transition into another mode of being. That understanding alone changes how the system responds. When you approach the night without resistance, coherence increases. When you let go of expectation, perception stabilizes. When you stop trying to control the experience, it opens. Not dramatically. Naturally. This is the paradox that governs everything you have heard. Allowing creates access. Forcing closes it. You have been traveling there unconsciously for your entire life. You have been integrating, calibrating, and releasing without memory. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was wrong. But awareness transforms repetition into participation. What was automatic becomes meaningful. What was fragmented becomes clear. You are not being asked to do anything extraordinary. You are being invited to remain present as identity softens. To notice without interfering. To feel without narrating. To allow the night to do what it has always done, but with recognition instead of amnesia. This recognition will not turn you into someone else. It will return you to what you already are beneath the roles, the tension, and the effort. And when you wake, you may not remember images or events. That does not matter. What matters is coherence. The subtle recalibration that carries into the day. Over time, you will notice that life responds differently. Not because you demanded change, but because you stopped resisting alignment. The mirror adjusts. The field responds. And what once felt heavy begins to move. Nothing here is about escape. You are not leaving this world behind. You are learning how to meet it from a deeper position. One that is not confined to the body or bound to a single timeline. One that remembers itself even as form dissolves. Tonight, you will go there again. The invitation is not to do more, but to recognize what is already happening. To meet the journey consciously, without effort, without fear, without control. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it before their timeline closes.